So you want to build a hunting arrow, but you don't have time. Well, we can do that. So for the sake of the video, we're going to assume that you've already purchased your arrows. You know what spine you need. That way we don't have to discuss this because that's a whole nother rabbit trail we can go down. The standards you're building a hunting arrow are not to the standards that you're building, say, a target arrow. You're not spending $15 on one arrow shaft, and you're not going through every little teeny tiny tuning process that you have to do to make sure that that arrow is flying the absolute best that it can. More so when you're setting up a hunting arrow, we just want it to survive going through a deer. Truth of the matter is these arrows are we're gonna beat the snot out of them. Up and down a tree, in and out of the woods, hitting briars, dropping the bow, whatever you may do, whatever hunting throws at you. So you take your bear shaft, okay? The first thing I wanna do when I take a bear shaft arrow is I'm actually gonna shoot the bear shaft. I'm gonna put it in my bow, and I'm going to take a silver Sharpie or some sort of marker, and I'm gonna mark the very top of the arrow. Then I'm going to shoot it at a target at about 5 or 6 feet away. What we're trying to figure out is we're trying to figure out which way the arrow wants to naturally spin, because bows will naturally try to spin an arrow a certain direction, some left, some right. It's not a lot, but they do want to try to spin it a certain way. So for me, when I'm setting up an arrow, whether it's hunting or target, whatever it may be, I want to aid that process. I don't want to have two opposing forces. Now, obviously, if you put a right helical arrow in a left spinning bow, the arrow is going to take over the bow. In situations where, like, if I'm shooting a fixed blade, I need every little bit of steering ability back here that I can. And if I'm shooting a right helical arrow out of a left spinning bow, those vanes have to take that time to overtake the bow and start spinning it the other way. So I just want to figure out which way my bow is going to spin the arrow, and then I'm going to fletch that arrow accordingly. Now this is my current setup. My bow likes to spin the arrow left, and these are fletched with a right helical. I bought these pre-fletched and I didn't really know, and I didn't really care at the time. But when I went to tune fixed blades to this arrow setup, it was a horrible, awful process because they would not tune for the life of them until I built my new hunting arrow. These are tack vanes. I got them wrapped. I went with a 4-fletch and I put the proper helical on. Now these things fly like butter. Is that a saying? I don't know. But now they fly great with the proper helical, the proper steering ability in the rear end of the arrow. The broadhead is not trying to steer at all. This is so much more powerful than the broadhead. And because my bow wants to spin an arrow left, right out of the gate, we're spinning that arrow left. Now, an exception that you have to think about is if you are shooting a single bevel broadhead, you want to fletch your arrow according to kind of the way that your broadhead is beveled. Just keep that in mind when you're doing that. I don't shoot single bevels, so I can't really explain that too much, and I can't really go into too much more detail. Talk to someone who actually knows about single bevels. Next thing we're gonna do, since we've figured out which way the bow wants to spin it, we are going to actually bear shaft tune. Shoot at 10 yards, shoot half a dozen arrows, bear shaft, do some knock tuning. Knock tuning is basically you shoot the same arrow over and over again until you get it to fly the straightest that it can. It may not fly plumb. The big thing is if you can get a bear shaft arrow to shoot really good, that's one less thing that the vanes have to worry about. And if you're shooting fixed blades, that goes a long way. Now you don't have to knock tune, but that's just something that if you have a little bit extra time, spend the time to do it. But I know that this video is about not having enough time to do the right thing, so I guess we'll move on from that. At this point, we can start fletching the arrow. I personally, with hunting arrows, like to use wraps. Like I said, this is my current setup. The problem with this setup is because it's a black arrow, when I shoot it through a deer, I can't really see blood on the arrow. So wraps are just one way for me to see the blood better. Another reason I like wraps is because it makes refletching a much easier process. All you do is peel the wrap off the shaft instead of sitting there with a knife or a scraper and acetone trying to clean up the arrow shaft for refletching. Another reason I like wraps, it makes fletching a little bit easier of a process because the vanes like to stick to that wrap a little bit more than they do to the carbon arrow. At least that's what I've found out when using tack vanes. I'm not sure about Bohning vanes or AAE or any of the other ones. I'm just saying, at least for tack, because tack is such a stiff, hard vane, I've had trouble getting them to fletch really well on a bare carbon shaft. As you can see right here, they just did not stick too well and they broke off. But this is a proper hunting arrow that I built. 4-fletch, left helical with the wrap. You can do 3-fletch, you can do 4-fletch, you can do the funky multiple different degree fletch. If you have a Bitzenberger, you can do that really easily. If you want a Bitzenberger, check out the link in the description. Fletching is kind of an annoying process. It's something that takes practice, and that's going to be the most time-consuming part of this whole process is fletching your arrows. So it's one of those things that it might look ugly at first, but you just have to keep doing it. And the more and more that you do it, you will catch on. You will figure out tips and tricks of your own. You'll pick it up pretty quick. But don't be frustrated if it looks awful the first couple times you do it, because you know we've all went through that process where we've made absolutely awful looking arrows. These don't look too terribly bad, but if you look real close, you can see glue oozing out, and yeah, it's not the prettiest, but it's not too bad. Now that's about as basic as you can get for setting up a hunting arrow. You've picked the arrow out at the pro shop, you shot it through your bow, so you know which way to spin it, you know which way to fletch it helical wise. Put some wraps on, you fletched them, you kind of picked it up. At this point, go outside, put some field tips on and shoot the arrows, make sure that they shoot right. If they're a little fishtail or whatnot, you can paper tune them or just adjust your rest a little bit. Personally, I would spend a lot more time on setting up a hunting arrow, and I would try to make sure that they're tuned the best that they can. But if you're in a time crunch, that's about as basic as it gets. You buy an arrow, you fletch them, and you run with it. If you're shooting mechanicals really don't require any tuning. I have my own opinion about mechanicals, but we're not gonna go there today. I shoot fixed blades, so there's a little bit more tuning that is involved sometimes if you want really good arrow flight at longer distances. If you're just shooting 20 yards, you want to slap on a fixed blade, you'll be fine. I mean, I shoot Magnus stingers like these, and even with an improperly built arrow like this, I managed to shoot them at 20 and 30 yards. They shot decent groups, and I've killed 2 deer and a fox with that setup this year already. So if you're wanting to set up an arrow quickly like I explained here, check out all the little tools and trinkets that I use in the links down below. You can also check out the arrows, the vanes, and the wraps, and all those little things that I've used to build the arrow along the way as well. Links in the top of the description. Check them out. You can go purchase them there. It would also support the channel if you did that. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. If you have a question, leave a comment down below. And if you want to see more of this type of content and hunting content, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you later.